Hi, my name is Juan. How many of you have had issues with mental disorders? Do you have medication for your mental illness? According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, 1 in 4 adults experience mental illness, and about 13.6 million people live with a serious mental illness, such as schizophrenia, depression, or bipolar disorder. How about ADHD? Are you aware that one of us can be having ADHD even if we don't know it? Have you seen someone with ADHD and thought you have similar symptoms that he or she has? You may start thinking that your family member probably has ADHD that they have to live with. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder affects between 5 and 8% of school-age children and between 2 and 4% of adults. ADHD has been studied for a century, and it has been named quite a few times, such as brain damage syndrome, minimal brain dysfunction, hyperkinetic impulsive disorder, or attention deficit disorder. These days, many people still use the term ADD as referring to this mental disorder, but the current term is developed as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. These are some myths and misunderstanding of ADHD that many people think are true. First, people think ADHD is not a disorder. People think that psychiatrists and pharmacists created the illness to increase their profit. However, studies show that ADHD is a chronic disorder that affects a person's daily, social, emotional, academic, and work dysfunctioning. Adults with ADHD have employment difficulties, suffer from depression, personality disorders, have multiple auto accidents, and have high rates of sexually transmitted diseases and teen pregnancies compared to individuals without ADHD. Second, people think ADHD is a disorder of childhood. A research found that children with ADHD have more severe symptoms in their future. ADHD is a lifelong disorder. Third, people think children with ADHD are over-medicated, even though the rate of prescription of medicine has been increasing. The purpose of the use has not been reported to be for ADHD alone. Here are some common symptoms of ADHD: daydreaming, forgetting or losing things, talking too much, making careless mistakes, and taking unnecessary risks, having a hard time resisting temptation, having trouble taking turns, having difficulty getting along with others, making small movements. Do you realize that you had these symptoms quite frequently in your daily life? Do you feel like you want to take the diagnostic test to see if you have ADHD or not? Many of you probably noticed that you have a few symptoms described above. I think I have a few of those as well. Let's look at some numbers and hope that the number will help us understand what and how ADHD is becoming part of our lives. 5.1 million children have between age 4 and 17 are currently diagnosed with ADHD. 3.5 million children have been taking medication for ADHD. Boys are twice more likely to have ADHD than girls. For teachers to be aware, I have found some challenging facts. Students with ADHD demand attention by talking out of turn and moving around the classroom. They struggle with following instructions. They often forget to write down homework assignments, do them, or bring them to school. Long-term projects are difficult, especially when direct supervision is not present. In the classroom, teachers have a very important role to accommodate with an appropriate setting. How would you handle a student who has ADHD and won't listen to you as a teacher? I have found some tips for teachers to see a student who has ADHD. Provide a seat which is away from windows or doors. Provide a seat right in front of your desk. Provide seats in a row, not in round tables. Then here are some more tips on how to teach them. Give instructions one at a time and repeat them if necessary. Work on difficult projects first, then move on to easier ones. Provide as much visuals as possible. Pictures and videos work great. Make outlines for as many pieces of information as possible. For students with ADHD to study more effectively, they need short quizzes rather than long tests. Divide long-term projects into smaller segments and assign an achievement for each segment. Let the student do as much work as possible on computer, except late work, and give partial credit for partial work. Finally, allow the student to have frequent breaks. I know they need to improve their study skills and overcome the disorder, but they need to do best, and that's when they are in certain circumstances. As ADHD has been getting popular among people, many treatment methods have been developed. The most common way to treat ADHD is by medication. Stimulants are most well-known medication to treat more than 70% of children with ADHD. However, the dose can be varied depending on children. Doctors should consider different doses for each child with ADHD. Behavioral therapy is also an important part of treatment. Here are some tips for parents to teach their children. Create a routine and follow the schedule. Put backpacks, clothes, and toys in the same place for your child to find them easily. Turn off TV, radio, and computer, especially when your child is doing homework. Offer limited choices which will less overwhelm or stimulate your child. Use clear and brief directions to remind your child with responsibilities. List goals and reward your child when they are achieved. Use timeouts and take away privileges for punishment. Find out what your child can do well. Does it make you excited about helping your child? I'm very excited to do these things in the future when I have my child, because any kid can do these activities and improve their lifestyle. Please don't think that your child is going to live a bad life because of ADHD. There are many successful stories have been told around the world. I would like to share some stories that I have found on ADHD Awareness Month. Peter Shankman is an author, entrepreneur, speaker, and global connector. He has merged the power of creativity and ADHD and a dose of adventure. Peter is the founder of Shank Minds, a global series of business mastermind sessions, as well as a professor at NYU, teaching public relations. Instead of being told to sit down and be quiet, Peter trained himself to write down his thoughts on paper and make them out of his head. As soon as he could find ways to take advantage of his brain, he was not frustrated anymore. Peyton Barber. Peyton is a football player at Auburn University. He was diagnosed with ADHD when he was 7 years old. He was sometimes frustrated in class because he understood things slower than other classmates did. He found out that he first has to let people around him know about his situation. Then those people were aware of it and help him in any possible ways. His parents and teachers were very supportive throughout high school and now college. Just like these people who have struggled with their illness and figured out their way out of their disadvantage. Are you interested in challenging yourself and earn what you want in the future? Do you want to study hard and work hard to achieve your goals? I hope the message today will help you and people around you to help you grow up and succeed. Living a life with ADHD is not just your challenge to deal with. It is your parents, friends, and teachers. Don't think you're distracting them too much. Statistical numbers don't mean that you are going to fail in class and live on medication for your entire life. I hope you can bring out your potential imagination to show the world what you got. Best wishes. Thanks.